99% of U.S. businesses fall under the category of small businesses. And new this morning, we're tracking the impact of the president's newest tariffs on small business owners, both nationally and domestically.
As of yesterday, goods from more than 60 countries and the European Union are under tariff rates of 10% or higher, representing the highest rates we've seen since the Great Depression. And joining us now to make sense of all of this and break down the potential impact of this newest round or the latest round of tariffs is Michael Negron. He's a senior fellow for economic opportunity at the Center for American Progress. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. I know that you've held prior economic policy positions under both the Biden and Obama administrations and shedding some light on this. Can you first give us an overview of of the president's new tariffs and what concerns you the most? What sticks out?
Well, good morning and happy to join you. So what the president has implemented, what came into effect yesterday, was just the latest wave of tariffs hitting more than 60 countries with rates from 10 to 40% based on the country. And these were his, what he called reciprocal tariffs back in April on his so-called Liberation Day when he made his big tariff announcement. They were long delayed. He announced them. The stock market tanked back on April 2nd. He delayed them by 90 days, delayed them by another month, and now they're finally coming into effect. And my big concern, and it's one that's shared pretty broadly across party lines, is that tariffs are basically a tax. And they are a tax that a business pays at the port of entry when they're importing a product. Picture an importer of fine wines that supplies independent Italian restaurants in the DC area. When those wines arrive, they now have to pay a higher tariff in order to unload them. And then that business has to decide, am I going to eat this cost or am I going to pass it on to my consumers? And what ends up happening is they pass those along to consumers and everyone ends up a little worse off. So I think we're in for some rough economic times if these tariffs persist.
So if you could just, we've heard this since the administration came into power, but if you could, for us, just break it down. What does this really mean? You touched on it for the businesses and especially those niche small businesses, perhaps. What does it mean for us? Is it all dependent on what the business decides to do? Like you mentioned, if they eat it or they pass it on to us?
Well, at the end of the day, consumers are going to end up facing higher prices. Predictions range in between $2,000 and $3,000 per household and higher. Product costs and everything from clothing to shoes to electronics to toys. What we're seeing now is that in the early months of these tariffs, businesses have been eating these costs for the most part. Goldman Sachs estimated that businesses have absorbed about 60% of the cost of tariffs. But the expectation is that as this continues for months, that order will flip and consumers will eat about 70% of the cost of tariffs. It's likely that businesses have been trying to absorb them in the early going for fear of losing consumers, in a belief that maybe the president would back off of the tariffs and maybe would end up not being as high as they're shaping up to be. And that's why you've seen it only in the last month's inflation numbers, the ones released a few weeks ago, did we start to see inflation really tick up. And so we'll need to watch what happens next week. There's more numbers out on Tuesday, but this will ultimately cost consumers. Consumers will ultimately see higher prices, probably less product selection, and as soon as this Halloween and holiday season, when we'll see the impacts.
So what's the recourse here? What are some tips for business owners in our area to help, lessen the burden of the new tariffs? What can they do?
Well, unfortunately, there's not much. That's the problem with such broad-based tariffs hitting countries rather than specific industries or products. Things that can be done is looking at the sourcing of your products. There are countries that have lower tariffs than others. Some of the highest tariffs are hitting China, for example, and so looking to see if there are products, alternatives from Japan or from Vietnam or countries like that, Bangladesh, et cetera, that instead of the 30% tariff that Chinese products are facing, you're looking at 15%, for example, from Japan. And so that is one example. I don't think there's a lot of recourse in that sense, just because so much is made in these higher tariff countries. But that's one example. Something we've seen that consumers have done, which I think is a good call, and I've done this myself as a parent of two children, is we're seeing record numbers of parents doing their back to school shopping early to try to get ahead of these tariffs. And that makes good sense, particularly when it comes to clothing and shoes, because kids, they're always growing and they're changing multiple sizes. And economists are expecting clothing and shoe prices to go up by about 40% in the coming months. And so that's an example where consumers are acting really rationally, shopping early, even as the president and his administration are acting irrationally with these tariffs.
Michael Negron is with the Center for American Progress. Thank you so much for shedding some light on what is likely to come down the road with tariffs. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anytime.